What's up, everyone? Welcome back to King Anime Review, and for this video, I'll be comparing the original Naruto anime, also known as Naruto Part 1, to the Naruto Next Generations anime. And I'll be going over different categories, and at the end, I'll be telling you which one I think is a better show overall. But before I get into the different categories, I do want to talk about a few of the similarities and differences between the two anime, because some people claim that Boruto is just a copy of Naruto, and that's not true at all. So going over the differences first, Boruto starts off in the academy. The series starts off with Boruto and his friends in the academy. Naruto starts off pretty much right when Naruto graduates from the academy. So like we only have half of an episode where Naruto is in the academy, and then at the end of the episode he became a Genin. So Naruto already started off with, the Genin and stuff, going on missions. And so that's one difference. Another difference is because of that setup, that meant that Boruto introduced a huge cast of characters in the first arc, whereas Naruto didn't introduce a huge cast of characters until the tuning exams, which was the second arc of the series. Because in the first episode, we barely seen, we seen the other Genin, but we didn't really know that much about him or learn that much about him. We just seen him briefly. But in Boruto's case, all of his friends was already in the academy. So we got to see episodes of them, bonding together and getting to know each other. And we got to see those side characters introduced early on in the first arc. And yeah, so all of that stuff was great. We also got great character development with a lot of those side characters like Kawabe and Dinky and stuff. So that stuff was very, very great. So anyways, they had different starts. That's one thing. Another thing is Kawaki, who's essentially the deuteragonist or the co-main character of the series. You could call him either one. Deuteragonist just means he's like the second main character, or you could call him co-protagonist. Like you could probably say he's like almost equal to Boruto as being the main character of the series, because at least in the manga right now, he's basically the other main character of the series. And in the anime, in the recent episodes, we started the Kawaki arc, and we recently just finished that arc, and Kawaki is almost as much of a main character as Boruto. So yeah. The difference between Boruto and Naruto in this case is Sasuke, who's the deuteragonist or co-protagonist of Naruto. He was introduced very, very early on. Like before the first arc even started, he was introduced in like the second or third episode of as a matter of fact, he might have even been in the first episode of Naruto. So yeah, in Kawaki's case, and shall I say in Boruto's case, it took over 180 episodes before Kawaki actually appeared in the Boruto anime. That's not including the flash forward scene, which was only a couple of seconds. But yeah, excluding the flash forward scene, which was only a couple of seconds of the first episode, it took Kawaki over 180 episodes to appear in the anime. And also excluding the openings, because he was in like opening 7, which came out a decent amount of time before he actually appeared in the anime. So yeah, those are a few of the differences. And like one similarity I'm gonna mention, because like I said, those similarities, it's plenty of differences that proves that Boruto is not a copy of Naruto. But I am going to throw in one similarity that is a valid similarity, and that is the fact that the Karma Seal is similar to the curse mark. Now, it's a couple differences between them, though. So one difference between the way the curse mark is used in Naruto and the way the Karma Seal is used in Boruto is the curse mark doesn't change Sasuke into Orochimaru. The whole reason why Orochimaru put the curse mark on Sasuke is because he was envious of the Uchiha body, and he desired the Uchiha body. He wanted Sasuke's body because Sasuke is an Uchiha, therefore he has superior genetics and he has a superior body to Orochimaru, especially since he has the Kekkei Genkai of the Sharingan. But not just the Kekkei Genkai of the Sharingan, he's also an Uchiha. And as we seen with Kakashi, only real Uchiha can use the full power of the Sharingan. That's what Itachi was telling Kakashi when Itachi completely no-dipped Kakashi. Itachi basically said, only someone with the Sharingan and the Kekkei Genkai of the Uchiha can beat me. He was saying only a full Uchiha who can use the Sharingan to his fullest potential can actually beat him. That's why he was referring to Sasuke. That's why Kakashi thought about Sasuke. So yeah, Orochimaru wanted Sasuke's body because Sasuke's body was better than his own. And like I said, the curse mark doesn't change Sasuke into Orochimaru. The Otsutsuki, on the other hand, their karma seals actually change their vessels into them because their bodies are actually superior to their vessels. The only reason why they're giving people the karma seal is so they can resurrect through them, because the whole 10 tails thing means that one of them have to be sacrificed to grow the divine tree. So since one of them have to be sacrificed, that means inevitably one of them would die. Therefore, they plant the karma seal on a vessel so they can resurrect through that vessel. And usually, in most cases, their vessels are actually weaker than them. Like Al-Sasuke are actually superior to them, and their karma seal actually changes the vessels into them. So yeah, that's the case with that. And also another difference is in Boruto's case, Boruto and Kawaki, the two main characters, they both have the karma seal. And in Naruto's case, only Sasuke has the curse mark. I mean, he's not the only one with the curse mark, but Naruto, for example, doesn't have the curse mark. So in Boruto's case, it'll be like if Naruto and Sasuke had the curse mark and they were both in danger in that sense. Now, there's also a couple other similarities, but I don't want to waste too much time on the similarities and differences. I want to get into the categories and explain which anime I think is better overall by the end of the video. So, starting off with the first category, and that's main characters. Now, Boruto wins this category. And the reason why Boruto wins this category is because I'm comparing the original Naruto to Boruto. So, therefore, all of the stuff that happened in Shippuden, I'm not counting that stuff right now. So, if I was counting, like, the characters overall, then I would say Naruto characters beat Boruto characters, because Sasuke is the best developed and most well-written character in all of fiction, period. However, since I'm only counting part one, that means Boruto will win, because while Sasuke and Naruto did have character development in part one, they got the bulk of their character development in Shippuden. And then they even got more character development later on in Boruto. Yes, Naruto and Sasuke, they actually got character development in Boruto, which is great. But the bulk of their character development was in Shippuden. That's when they got the most amount of character development. In part one, they had some character development as well. Like, for example, them developing, they got a lot braver in part one. It was times where Naruto and Sasuke would freeze up in part one, but then later on, they got a lot braver. And, like, for example, Naruto, he froze up when they were going on their first mission, when Team 7 was going on their first mission, and they were attacked by those Chunings. Sasuke called Naruto a scaredy cat, and then Naruto made a vow to himself, I'm never going to run away again or whatever. And then later on, Sasuke froze up when he was fighting Orochimaru, when Orochimaru was trying to fight him, and then Naruto called him a scaredy cat, and then Sasuke developed, he got a lot more braver. So they did have character development. That's just a minor example, but also Sasuke, he got a lot less cocky in part one. Notice how at the start of part one, he was very cocky, and he was very cocky towards Naruto, acting like he was better than Naruto all the time, kind of condescending a little bit. But then basically in their final battle in part one, he basically developed that respect for Naruto, and he said, yeah, I'm gonna put my headband on because I'm gonna acknowledge your power. However, you're still not gonna lay a scratch on my forehead. But he did acknowledge Naruto's power. That's something that he didn't do at the start of part one. So yeah, there is character development there. However, Boruto wins this category in terms of main characters because, like I said, I'm not counting the Shippuden stuff. And if you don't count Shippuden, then Boruto easily wins. Like, for example, Kawaki has much better character development than Naruto and Sasuke had in part one. Because Kawaki, he went from being a cynical kid who didn't trust anyone to developing bonds, relationships, friendships, and, just bonds in general with people in the village, to the point where he would be willing to leave the village in order to not put his friends in danger, not put Sarada, Boruto, and, the rest of his friends in danger. And also, he actually developed to a point where he would actually be willing to sacrifice his life to protect Naruto. That's how much Kawaki has developed in Boruto so far. So, yes, Kawaki's character development right now, going from a cynical kid to going from a cynical kid who didn't trust anyone to a character who would be willing to sacrifice his life to protect others. That character development from Kawaki, who's a main character in Boruto, is way better character development than anything that we've had in Naruto. That's way better character development than any of the main characters in the original Naruto anime. And yeah, that's the case with that. Also, Boruto has had great character development, going from being willing to, cheat and do whatever he could to basically get his dad's attention because he wanted to beat his dad, and he wanted to basically prove to his dad that he's actually better than him and actually beat him, because he had like sort of a dislike for his dad at the start of the series. But he developed from that to being a person who was against cheating and who would accept his father's, the way his father did things, and his father not spending too much time with him in the house and stuff like that. Also, Sarda got great character development with, her going from the ideology where she thought, DNA and all of that stuff actually mattered, but she developed by the end of her arc to realizing the fact that DNA and all of that stuff don't matter. What actually matters is how people treat you. So yeah, Boruto easily wins the character development category for the main characters. Boruto just wins the main character category overall. So yeah, Boruto wins that category. Now moving on to the second category, side characters. And Boruto also wins this category. The reason why Boruto wins this category is because Boruto has full arcs that are dedicated to side characters and their development. And basically, they have full arcs where the side characters actually become the main characters of that arc. For example, the Chocho arc, the Mirai Sarutobi arc, the Konohamaru arc, etc. They have full arcs where the side character essentially becomes... They have full arcs where a side character essentially becomes the main character of that arc. Also, Shukadai was pretty much the main character of the Byakuya gang arc. So they have multiple arcs where the side character, where a side character becomes a main character. I mean, not a main character, becomes the main character of that arc. So that's very, very great. Now, Naruto is very, very underrated when it comes to side characters. Naruto, even in part 1, the side characters were really well developed. Rock Lee had great character development. Neji had fantastic character development. Shikamaru had great character development. Gaara had great character development. There's plenty of side characters in part 1, Naruto, who had great character development. But the difference between Naruto, part 1 Naruto and Boruto in this regard is Boruto had, like I said, full arcs that were dedicated to side characters getting character development, where the side character was actually the main character of that arc. And that's something that Naruto doesn't have. So yeah, that's why Boruto wins the side character category. Next up, moving on to emotion. And Naruto wins the emotion category. Now, the reason it wins the emotion category is because, number one, it's funnier. And this is the most, kind of like subjective category. The rest of these categories on this list is pretty objective. Like you can objectively say which one is better and which one is worse. But in this category, this is the most subjective category on the list, I think. And yeah, I personally think Naruto is funnier. However, that's not the only thing that, when we talk about emotion, we talk about overall emotion. So that could be happiness, sadness, and stuff like that. So Naruto is funnier overall, in my opinion. Now, in terms of sadness, I think Naruto easily wins this. And I'm pretty sure, I think most people will agree that that's pretty objective, that Naruto wins this, because Naruto is sadder overall. So examples of that is Naruto versus Sasuke at the end of, or not necessarily the end, but basically at the end of the Sasuke retrieval arc, their final battle in part 1. That fight was more emotional than any fight that we have ever had in Boruto. So yeah, because Naruto and Sasuke, they both had very, very sad past. They both knew the pain of solitude, the pain of being alone, the pain of loneliness. They both understood that pain, and they talked about their feelings and stuff during that fight and how they related to each other. But also Naruto couldn't relate to Sasuke fully. He couldn't fully understand Sasuke because whereas Naruto, he had spent his entire life alone, Sasuke actually had a family and he actually experienced love and stuff like that. But he had that all taken away from him by his treacherous older brother Itachi Uchiha. And because of that, he ended up experiencing what Naruto actually experienced, which was being alone and loneliness and stuff like that. But he actually knew what love felt like. Naruto didn't really know what it felt like to lose love because no one very, very close to him had died before, like how Sasuke's family had died. So all of that stuff was very, very sad. Their whole fight and the dialogue that they had during that fight was very, very sad. The fact that they built a brotherly bond and a super close friendship throughout the course of part 1 before they had that fight, and the fact that Sasuke ended up leaving, which he was very, very emotional. You can tell he was very, very emotional during that fight. and him having to take down his friend and leave and basically leave and go to be with Orochimaru to train under Orochimaru. All of that stuff was very, very sad stuff. And also, when it comes to backstories, Boruto doesn't really compare to Naruto when it comes to backstories. Now, granted, Kawaki has a very, very sad backstory. And, there's other characters who have some sad backstories, but none of them compare to Sasuke's backstory. And not just Sasuke's, Gaara, Naruto's, Haku's. There's just plenty of characters in Naruto who had sad backstories, even in just part 1. Neji, Hinata. A lot of the characters, as a matter of fact, the majority of the characters who are the main cast of characters in Naruto Part 1 had extremely sad backstories. But Sasuke's is the saddest because his own brother, who he loved and looked up to so much, betrayed his family and slaughtered his entire family and then made him relive it via Genjutsu. He basically tortured Sasuke and made him relive his family being slaughtered via Genjutsu. So that Boruto doesn't have anything that compares to that emotionally. So yeah, Naruto wins the emotional category. Next up, villains. Naruto wins the villain category. Gaara is the best villain in the original Naruto, and he's way better of a villain than any villain that we've gotten in Boruto. So yes, Gaara is way better than any Boruto villain as a villain because, and I'm not even first off, when it comes to making a great villain, it's a couple things that I think are essential to having a great villain. Now, of course, your villain needs to do evil things and commit evil acts because that's what villains are. They're supposed to be evil, and they're supposed to be the antagonists, and they're supposed to do evil things and commit evil acts. Gaara does evil things as a villain in part 1 a lot. The guy he loves to kill people. The guy's insane. But the thing that makes it even better is because one thing that I think is essential for villains is I think we need to understand why they became villains. I think this is just in terms of essential things that villains need. You need a logical explanation for why they became a villain. So, and Gaara has that. He has a backstory that, basically logically explains how he ended up becoming a villain and how he went down that dark path. And in the case with Boruto doesn't have a lot of villains like that. And actually, I can't think of any villains in Boruto off the top of my head that are like that. Well, actually, if you count like the Mujina Bandits arc, not the Mujina Bandits, the Byakuya Gang arc, Ryogi, he did have sort of a sad backstory. So yeah, Ryogi was pretty good as a villain. Sumire, she did have a sad backstory. And it's not just about having a sad backstory. Villains need logical explanations that explain why they became a villain. Otherwise, they are one-dimensional villains. Basically, they're evil for the sake of being evil. There's no logical explanation for how that ended up happening. Thus, it makes it more unrealistic, and it just makes it worse. Villains like that, one-dimensional villains, are worse than three-dimensional villains who have logical explanations for why they turn evil. Also, like I said, you need to commit evil acts, to do evil things, etc. And then Gaara, he also had character development, after he was defeated, so that was great as well. But yeah, overall, Gaara, not only that, he was very entertaining. Also, villains, they need to be entertaining. They need to make things happen in the series. They need to have an effect on things in the series. They need to have an impact that also makes villains great. Like, they actually need to do things that actually impact the story, So, in Naruto's case, like, for example, killing important characters and stuff like that, like what Orochimaru did, he killed the third Hokage, or at least he led to the third Hokage's death. He almost destroyed the entire village, etc. Zabu was a great villain. Orochimaru, I'm not a huge fan of, but he was a decent villain as well. In Boruto's case, you got villains like Ishiki, the Korra members, the Mujina Bandits. None of them are as great as Gaara. So yeah, that's the case with that. Moving on now to the next category, that is relationship development. And the Naruto wins this category. Now, the reason why Naruto wins this category is because basically Naruto and Sasuke's relationship development throughout part 1 is the reason why Naruto wins this category. Now, Boruto has had some great relationship development. Now, for example, Kawaki, he's the best example. The guy, like I said, he went from a cynical kid who didn't trust anyone to actually developing strong enough bonds to the point where he will be willing to sacrifice himself to save people he love and care about. That's great. That's great and all. However, compare that to Naruto and Sasuke's relationship development throughout part 1. They literally went from hating each other at the start of the series to becoming basically like brothers by the time Sasuke left the village. They developed that brotherly bond. Naruto literally said that when in their battle in part 1. Naruto said, when I'm with you, I wonder if this is what it feels like to have a brother. So they developed that brotherly bond by the end of part 1. They went from hating each other essentially to having a brotherly love for each other. So, yeah, that was the case with that. Now, in the example that I presented with Kawaki, he didn't actually hate any of the people in the village. He just wanted to be left alone. He didn't like anybody. He didn't trust anybody. He just wanted to be by himself. He wanted to be left alone because he didn't trust anybody. But he never hated anybody in the village. So in Naruto's case, you went from hate to like a brotherly love with Naruto and Sasuke. In Kawaki's case, you went from Kawaki just not wanting to be involved with anybody, not really caring about anybody, to developing loving bonds with people in the village. And then you can also compare that to, if you want to use other examples from Boruto, you have Naruto and Boruto and Naruto's relationship that had development. But that relationship is, kind of like, some people might misinterpret it as being Boruto actually hating Naruto. He never really actually hated Naruto. I would say he more so was like he disliked a lot of Naruto's actions. I don't think he ever actually hated Naruto, because in the tuning exams you could see that he was happy and stuff when Naruto was actually acknowledging him and giving him fist bumps and stuff like that and encouraging him for the tuning exams. And he was like happy when he was sitting him. Like you can tell that he actually still kind of loved Naruto, but he actually disliked a lot of his actions. And that's pretty much how I would say that relationship was. But then he developed more of a acceptance of what Naruto's actions were by the end of that arc. So yeah, that's the relationship development category. Naruto wins that. As far as build up and foreshadowing. Now, this category, I'll give it to Naruto, mainly because the Naruto and Sasuke fight, it was built up throughout the entirety of part 1. Naruto essentially had over 130 episodes of build up for that one fight. No fight in Boruto has that much build up that I can think of right now. I'm pretty sure no fight in Boruto has that much build up. So yeah, that's cool with that. Boruto could reach that point. As a matter of fact, Boruto might even surpass Naruto in that regard when we get to future stuff in the series. But right now, Naruto wins in terms of the build up and foreshadowing. Next up, fights. Naruto wins that easily. Like I said, Naruto versus Sasuke had over 130 episodes of build up. The fights are better in terms of choreography. The way that they're done in Naruto, the way that they're, in terms of taijutsu and stuff. That stuff is, taijutsu, I guess you can say, is debatable. Because Boruto has some great taijutsu and stuff like that. But in terms of, in Boruto, they do have some fights that have some great strategy, just like in Naruto. Naruto has some fights that has great strategy. But Naruto, in terms of fights, has pretty much everything that fights needs. It has emotional impact. It has emotional investment that you can have with these fights in Naruto. So basically, Naruto, it has emotion in terms of fights. It has a lot of fights. Most fights actually have emotion, strategy, build up, foreshadowing, and great, in terms of execution, in terms of entertainment value, like the taijutsu and the moves and stuff like that. Naruto Boruto has all of those things as well for the most part, but I think it's lacking when it comes to build up. Naruto has better build up when it comes to their fights. Their fights have better build up. So especially Naruto and Sasuke, that's a prime example. Now, moving on to the pacing / format, basically how the story is laid out and how the story flows. Naruto wins that category as well. Now, the reason why Naruto wins this category is because the first 135 episodes of the Naruto anime were just non-stop epicness. The pacing was always good, never too fast, and definitely never too slow. The story was always entertaining at all times throughout the series, and for the first 135 episodes of Naruto. And then you have 80 episodes after Sasuke went to train with Orochimaru after he beat Naruto in the Final Valley. You have 80 episodes. After that, a lot of people consider those episodes filler. I don't consider them filler, but what's undeniable is those episodes are not that important to the story. Like you can literally skip those episodes and you wouldn't necessarily be missing out on anything that important. However, I don't recommend skipping those episodes because I personally enjoyed a lot of those episodes. Plus, side characters got great character development in those episodes. Like, for example, Hinata, she had great character development in one of those arcs after Sasuke went to train with Orochimaru in those 80 episodes after Sasuke left. But yeah, overall, the first 135 episodes of Naruto was amazing. Now, in Boruto's case, it's kind of different. Like, it's almost the opposite of Naruto in the sense that Boruto, it essentially took over 100 episodes for it to get to its peak levels. Naruto, it peaked in its first 135 episodes. Boruto peaked after like the 180s. Like, yeah, when Kawaki got introduced, that's when Boruto peaked in terms of quality. In terms of overall quality, Boruto peaked. Not just art and animation, but also storytelling and pacing and stuff like that. The Kawaki arc was the hands-down greatest arc in all of Boruto. Boruto got his peak. It got to its peak around that time during the Kawaki arc. Naruto, on the other hand, it peaked in the first 135 episodes. So I have to give the format and pacing to Naruto because it reached its peak and it was more engaging earlier on. And I think that's a bonus because for new fans to get invested into the story, it needs to be great from the beginning. And it needs to be fantastic early on to get them truly hooked onto the story. And Naruto did a great job at that. It was very, very engaging and entertaining. And it was actually at its peak basically since it started. All the way, like the first 135 episodes was its peak time. Now, don't get me wrong. Boruto, it was great from the start as well. It just wasn't as great as Naruto at the start. It didn't reach its peak until Kawaki got introduced. And that's why I think Kawaki is basically the Kawaki stuff is actually, in terms of Boruto content, that's actually on Naruto Part 1 levels. The Kawaki arc is actually Naruto Part 1 levels in terms of quality. It rivals those first 135 episodes of Naruto. However, Naruto was better from the start. Boruto, it did have some points where the pacing was a little bit slowed down, and it had some episodes that wasn't really that entertaining at all. For example, we had one episode it was about Mitsuki and a cat. We had another episode about Shukadai trying to figure out if he wanted to be a ninja and stuff. We get some pretty slow-paced and boring episodes in Boruto every once in a while. In Naruto's case, in the first 135 episodes, there wasn't really any boring episodes at all. So, yeah, I have to give it to Naruto. Next up, overall arcs. Boruto wins this. Yes, Boruto wins the arcs category. The reason why Boruto wins is because Boruto has more. It has more. This is like on average overall Boruto wins. Boruto has more great arcs. Okay, so what I said was, like, when I was talking about the format and stuff, I said Naruto, the first 135 episodes was amazing. The thing is, after those first 135 episodes, you get 80 episodes of stories that aren't that important to the story. Like I said, you can literally skip those 80 episodes and you can still know what's going on by the time you get to Shippuden. Like, they're not that important. However, like I said, I don't recommend you skip those episodes because side characters like Hinata have great character development in those episodes. But in general, like Boruto doesn't have like 80 episodes where it feels like nothing. I mean, where it feels like things aren't that important. Now, there are some arcs that are anime only arcs that aren't that important to the overall story of Boruto. The Mirai arc, while I do think he did a great job at developing Mirai's character, is not that important. It's not that important to the overall story. The Konohamaru arc, not that important to the overall story. Boruto has arcs like that. However, at least Boruto has, like, for example, those 80 episodes after Sasuke went to train with Orochimaru, we didn't really have any, I mean, we had a couple of, like, mini arcs, but they were all, like, mini arcs. Like, when I say mini arcs, a lot of these arcs was, like, maybe 6 episodes at most. At most. A lot of these arcs was, like, maybe 6 episodes, 5 to 6 episodes. in Boruto's case, we have some of these anime original episodes, anime original arcs, which are like, and Miski's, first of all, the Miski arc, that's an anime original arc. That was almost, I think that was about 20 episodes. So we have Boruto, and then you have other anime original arcs. Well, actually, some of those arcs are adapted from novels, like the New Way arc and the Turbulent Field Trip arc and stuff like that. But yeah, just in general, Boruto has more great arcs overall. Plus, the Kawaki arc is better than any arc in the original Naruto anime. The Kawaki arc is better than any arc in the original Naruto anime. Period. I mean, the only arc, the tuning exams and the Sasuke retrieval arc, specifically, I'll say the Sasuke retrieval arc and the Kawaki arc are equal. Actually, I can't even decide between those arcs, honestly. I will say that those are equal arcs, period. I'll say that those are equal. Those two arcs are equal. The tuning exams arc, I'll say the Kawaki arc is better than the tuning exams arc. The Sasuke retrieval arc, which I think is the best arc in part 1, I'll say is equal to the Kawaki arc. Now, other than that, you have the Zabuza arc, the tuning exams arc, the Search for Tsunade arc. Those are the other big arcs in the original Naruto anime. And then Boruto's case, you got Mujina Bandits, you got Korra Actuation, you got the Vesu arc, you got the Miski arc. That was anime original, but that's still an arc, a pretty long arc that you got. You got the Sarda arc, the New Way arc. Like, Boruto just has more arcs, like way more arcs in general. So, and more arcs that feel like full arcs. But yeah, Boruto wins the arcs category in terms of overall arcs. In terms of peak art and animation quality, Boruto wins this. Episode 65 of Boruto, where we had Naruto and Sasuke versus Momoshiki, that had better art and animation than anything from the original Naruto anime. So yeah, in terms of overall peak art and animation quality, Boruto wins. In terms of songs/music, Boruto wins this category. Now, the reason it wins is because the Boruto anime has better openings, in my opinion. In terms of songs, it has better openings and endings. Naruto has some very, very great openings and endings, but Boruto's, for example, opening 9, I think that opening, I'll say that opening is better than any of the openings from the original Naruto. The only openings that comes close to that is opening 2 from the original Naruto and maybe opening 4. So yeah, but Naruto has some great openings. But I'm not just talking about openings, I'm talking about sound, basically music overall. So also that includes the OSTs. Boruto has some great original soundtracks, some fantastic original soundtracks. But it also has, for example, in the time travel arc, Boruto was using some of Naruto's OSTs. So Boruto actually has the best of both worlds. It has its own original soundtracks, which are great. Plus, it uses Naruto's original soundtracks sometimes. So that's why I say Boruto wins in terms of music. Now, in terms of voice acting, Naruto wins in terms of the English dub. Boruto wins in terms of the English sub, basically the Japanese dub voice, which is the subtitles, the English subtitles. So yeah, Naruto wins with the dub in terms of voice acting. Boruto wins with the sub. In terms of artwork consistency, or artwork/animation consistency, Naruto wins because in Boruto's case, you have a lot of, like, in some cases, there's a whole episode where the art style literally changes, which I don't like at all. I prefer for the artwork to stay looking the exact same as it does throughout the entire series. Like, of course, characters are going to get taller, they're going to get older, they're going to change their outfits and stuff like that. I don't take off points for that. But what I do take off points for is when the artwork literally gets to a point where, like, for example, characters, and this is without a big time skip, by the way. Like, literally, it's maybe a day or two have passed from the previous episode, and the character's face look completely different. Like, for example, there's some episodes in the Boruto anime where Boruto, Sarda, and Miski's face look a lot tinier, and they look a lot more childish than how they looked in a previous episode, which is really, really, to me, that's a very, very bad thing. Now, granted, that didn't start to be a problem until the Mujina Bandits arc. That's when that first started. That first started in the Mujina Bandits arc, and that's like 140 episodes into the anime. So that wasn't a problem throughout the majority of the anime. But in the Mujina Bandits arc, every once in a while, we would get a whole episode where characters are looking different from how they should look. And granted, it wasn't that often. It was like maybe once every 20 episodes or so, but it still wasn't good. So we had that problem from the Mujina Banished arc all the way until the Kawaki arc started. Now, when the Kawaki arc started, we did not have that problem anymore at all. The artwork has been completely consistent throughout the entirety of the Kawaki arc. There's only been one episode where the artwork looked different, and that was the episode where Kawaki fought Boro, and they switched from the anime artwork style to the manga artwork style. So the artwork did change. However, the artwork changed for the better. The artwork actually looked great in that episode. However, I still don't even like it when they I don't like it when they change the artwork in general. I prefer for it to just look the same to how it's been looking. So yeah, that's the case with that. But thankfully, the artwork consistency isn't a problem anymore in the Boruto anime. Now, of course, you do have animation and artwork errors throughout any anime, not just Naruto and Boruto, but throughout any anime. You might have some scenes where there might be an artwork or animation error, but those are like minor nitpicks, and those usually get fixed when the Blu-ray and the DVD release comes out. But yeah, there are some, in Naruto's case and in Boruto's case, you do have episodes where, I mean, not full episodes, but you do have certain scenes in certain episodes where there was an error with the artwork and animation. That's just a common thing that happens in anime in general. So next up, moving on to, oh, actually, that was the last category. Yeah, so with that being said, Boruto wins 6 categories and Naruto wins 8 categories. So overall, Naruto is better. The original Naruto anime, Naruto Part 1, is better than Naruto Next Generations anime. So yeah, Naruto wins 8 categories, Boruto wins 6 categories. And with that being said, that's pretty much all I got to say for the video. If you guys liked the video, please drop a like. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that channel notification bell to be notified of all of my future videos. And also, drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comment section below. And share the video all over the internet. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out. Every promise I've been praying for.